The obsidian walls of the Arthurian citadel rose like jagged night against the stormlit sky, their surface reflecting every flash of lightning in fractured shards of silver. Adrian Voss had been marched through countless alien fortresses during his service as a field engineer, but nothing, not even the war-scorched bastions of the Kareth front, felt quite like this place. The air here carried a pressure he could feel behind his teeth, as if the entire structure were holding its breath. He shouldn't have been conscious long enough to notice any of it. 3 days ago, he'd been buried under a collapsed reactor core while stabilizing an evacuation route. He remembered the blinding heat, the screaming alarms, the moment the support beams failed, and then the cold, beautiful face that appeared through the smoke just before he blacked out. Dee thought she was a hallucination. She was. 2 Arthurian sentinels escorted him now, their armor humming softly with internal power. Adrian walked with a slight limp, the temporary med-gel still stiff around his ribs and shoulder. They hadn't let him shower. They hadn't let him rest. He still smelled like reactor dust and burnt alloy, which apparently was acceptable attire for being summoned by a queen. "Keep your eyes forward," one of the sentinels said, her voice filtered through a layered modulator. "And when addressed by her infinite radiance, you will not raise your voice. You will speak only truth, and you will not approach her unless commanded." Adrian exhaled slowly. Does collapsing count as approaching? Because my left leg, decided it hates diplomacy. The sentinel paused, a tiny hitch in her breath, a suppressed laugh. Good. At least someone in this fortress had a sense of humor. The citadel doors ahead of them split open, revealing a chamber so vast it could have held a starship hangar. Light poured through crystal spires, suspended like frozen rain above the throne platform. The court filled the room, tall, silver-skinned Arthurians with elongated ears and luminescent markings that trailed along their temples like constellations. The moment Adrian stepped inside, a wave of silence swept across them. Of course. He was still in a half-burnt uniform, and he was human. At the far end of the chamber, seated upon a throne carved from a single column of radiant stone, was Queen Elendra Selaris. He didn't breathe for a moment. Her presence wasn't merely royal, it was gravitational. Long dark hair cascaded like liquid shadow over armor worked from starlit metal, shifting between deep violet and silver as she moved. Her ears arched elegantly, tipped with crystalline piercings that caught the light. But her eyes, those impossible eyes, were a luminous, ancient gold, steady and unreadable. This was the woman who had personally led the counter-assault that saved 3 colonies. This was the ruler said to have never chosen a consort in 200 years. This was the face he'd seen through the smoke before losing consciousness. Adrian hesitated at the base of the steps, 10 meters away as instructed, close enough to feel the weight of her gaze settle on him like a verdict. "Adrian Voss," the Chancellor announced, human engineer, credited with the stabilization of the Arthurian Eastern reactor before detonation, sole survivor of the structural collapse. Adrian felt 80 stares burn into him. Queen Elendra finally spoke. "You prevented a cascade that would have consumed half my capital." Her voice carried no anger, no warmth, only truth sharpened into something dangerous. "Your sacrifice preserved millions. Arthurian law requires that I grant you a sovereign reward. Land, rank, wealth, anything within the crown's reach." Adrian swallowed. The chamber bristled with expectation. He looked up at her, not at her crown, not at her armor, but at her, the exhaustion beneath her poise. The loneliness carved into the stillness of her shoulders, the way her fingers tightened slightly on the throne as if she carried centuries she could never set down. He remembered that face through the smoke, a queen who had rushed into danger herself, a queen who didn't hesitate to save one human engineer. He took a breath. "I don't want land," he said softly, "or titles, or anything you can give from that throne." A ripple of shock raced through the room. Elendra's eyes narrowed, a warning or curiosity. "Then state what you truly desire." Adrian held her gaze, steady despite the tremor in his leg. "I choose you." The chamber froze, not metaphorically, no one moved, gasps scattered like sparks. The Chancellor nearly choked on his own breath. The sentinels shifted, unsure whether they were meant to arrest him or flee. But Elendra, she didn't move at all. For the first time, Adrian saw something flicker in those ancient golden eyes. Not anger, not amusement, something almost fragile. "Explain yourself," she said quietly. Adrian exhaled. "When the reactor collapsed, you didn't send soldiers, you came yourself. A queen who's commanded wars, who's borne the weight of galaxies, still willing to walk into fire for her people. You were alone on that battlefield. You've been alone for a long time. Her breath caught so slight no one but him could have noticed. You deserve to be chosen, Adrian said. Not for your power, not for your crown, for who you are behind all of that. The room erupted in whispers, but Elendra raised a hand, silencing them instantly. Her eyes never left him. We will speak, she said, voice lower now, privately. The court trembled with speculation, and as the sentinels moved to escort him to the Queen's private wing, Adrian felt the weight of a future shift, quiet, trembling, inevitable. Whatever weight, the corridors leading to the Queen's private wing were nothing like the grand throne hall. Here, the walls narrowed into quiet stone passages lit by soft indigo lanterns. The air felt warmer, more intimate, as though the citadel itself understood the boundaries of power and privacy. Adrian walked between two sentinels, neither speaking. His heartbeat felt too loud in the silence, but he kept his steps steady even as pain radiated from his ribs. The temporary med gel had stiffened like amber. He probably looked ridiculous. A half-broken human on his way to a private audience with the most untouchable woman in the galaxy. A woman he'd just chosen. A queen who hadn't said no, not yet. They stopped before a black crystalline door that shimmered faintly when approached. The sentinels bowed their heads slightly as it dissolved open, as if melting into the surrounding air. Inside, the chamber was nothing like he'd expected from a queen who commanded fleets. It was warm, lived in, quiet but not cold. Bookshelves lined an entire wall, real books bound in leather and starweave. A low table held a pot of steaming herbal infusion. The far window overlooked an ocean of storm clouds where bolts of violet lightning crawled like living veins. And standing beside that window, her back to him, was Queen Elendra Solaris. The sentinels remained outside. The door resealed without a sound. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Adrian cleared his throat gently. Your radiance. You may call me Elendra here. Her voice carried none of the sharp projection she'd used in court. It was softer now, almost thoughtful. He took a slow step closer. You wanted to speak privately, he said. I want, she corrected quietly, to understand. She turned toward him, and for the first time he saw her without the armor of ceremony. Her robes were simpler, her hair unbound, falling in dark waves over her shoulders. Without the crown's brilliance, the golden glow of her eyes softened into something almost mortal. She looked younger. She looked tired, most of all. She looked uncertain. Say it again, she said. Adrian's breath hitched. Which part? Her gaze held him still. The part where you claimed your reward. He swallowed. She was giving him a chance to take it back. A merciful exit before he changed the course of her empire and his own life. But he didn't want an exit. I choose you. Elendra inhaled sharply, a small sound, almost imperceptible, like a woman who'd spent 2 centuries preparing for anything except this. You speak boldly for a human. Someone has to, Adrian said. Your entire court walks on eggshells around you. They worship you, they fear you, but none of them see you. Her jaw tightened, a flicker of something dangerous or wounded crossed her face. You presume much, she said. I observe much. And what exactly have you observed? She asked, stepping toward him. Be careful with your answer. He met her eyes without flinching. You're lonely. The silence that followed felt like gravity shifting. Elendra's expression didn't break, but it wavered, just slightly, enough that Adrian knew he'd touched the truth. Lonely, she repeated, as if tasting the forbidden word. You believe a queen with absolute command of a star empire is lonely. I believe a woman who carries all of that alone is. She exhaled sharply, like someone struck in an unarmored place. You risk more than you understand speaking to me this way. I'm not speaking to your title, Adrian said softly. I'm speaking to the person I saw in the reactor chamber, the one who threw herself into danger without hesitation, the one whose hands trembled for half a second when she thought I was already dead. Her gaze snapped to his, golden eyes wide, almost startled. You noticed that, she whispered. I notice you, he answered. Another long silence, broken only by the distant growl of thunder outside the window. Elendra turned slightly, her profile illuminated by the flickering stormlight. After a moment, she asked, Do you know what it means to choose the Eternal Queen? No, then I will tell you. She faced him fully again. It means inviting danger into your life. It means living under constant scrutiny. It means your every breath becomes political. Every gesture of affection, every argument, every silence, interpreted by thousands as strategy or threat. I'm an engineer, Adrian said. I can adapt. She almost smiled, almost. And what if the danger is me? She asked quietly, stepping closer. What if I am the most dangerous part of your choice? Then I trust myself to handle that too. Her breathing faltered. He wasn't sure she realized it. Slowly, Elendra lifted a hand, hesitating midway, as if touching him would violate some sacred law. Her fingers hovered near his cheek, trembling with a vulnerability she hid from the galaxy. I do not know how to be what you think I am, she whispered. I do not know how to be chosen. You don't have to know, Adrian said. You just have to let yourself try. Her hand finally touched his face. Barely, soft enough to feel like a question. Adrian didn't move, didn't breathe. You are strange, she murmured. Strange and sincere. It is a dangerous combination. So I've been told. Elendra drew her hand back slowly, though her fingers lingered as if reluctant to leave. The moment stretched, fragile as glass suspended between them. Tomorrow, she said at last, voice steadying again. I will summon you. We will discuss what your choice means for the Arthurian throne and for us. He nodded. And Adrian, she added, her tone softer than any he'd heard from her before. Do not regret what you said in the throne room. I won't. Adrian barely slept. He lay in the impossibly soft guest chamber bed, staring up at a ceiling carved with drifting constellations that shifted slowly, mimicking the Arthurian sky. Every few minutes, his mind replayed the same moment. The brush of Elendra's fingers against his cheek, light as stardust, trembling as if she were the one afraid he might disappear. He'd touched the loneliness of a queen, and it had touched him back. When dawn finally bled through the crystalline window, he sat up, scrubbed a hand over his face, and muttered to himself, Well, Adrian, you've done it now. He hadn't just changed the course of his life. He'd thrown himself into the gravitational pull of a woman who ruled a star empire and who was trying to remember how to be anything but alone. A soft chime at the door interrupted his thoughts. Enter, he called. The door slid open, and instead of sentinels, a small Arthurian attendant peeked inside, barely up to Adrian's shoulder, with bioluminescent markings faint and shimmering, indicating early adolescence by human comparison. The young attendant bowed with surprising formality. Captain Adrian Voss, her radiance requests your presence in the memorial garden. Adrian blinked. The memorial garden. Yes, the attendant said, eyes widening slightly as if the location carried enormous weight. It is rare for anyone to be summoned there. Please follow me. As Adrian walked behind the boy through winding corridors, he noticed something new. People were whispering, not cruelly, not dismissively, but with curiosity. Some bowed as he passed. Some stared as if trying to see what a queen might have seen. A few guards even nodded with a respect he hadn't expected. Rumor spreads fast in palaces, Adrian thought. They reached a curved archway that opened into an immense courtyard of shimmering white stone. Dozens of tall crystalline pillars rose from the ground like frozen beams of starlight, each one etched with thousands of names. The names of the fallen. At the center stood Queen Elendra. She wore no armor, only a long robe of dark indigo that moved gently in the morning breeze. Her hair was unbound again, and sunlight caught the faint silver streaks woven into the dark strands. Her back was turned, posture perfectly straight, hands loosely clasped before her. She looked like a goddess carved of light and shadow, beautiful, ethereal, and unbearably alone. The attendant bowed and withdrew. Adrian stepped softly across the stone path. You summoned me, he said gently. Elendra didn't turn at first. Instead, she lifted a hand and traced the name at the top of a pillar. Her fingers lingered over the carved symbols, tender, almost grieving. These are the names of the soldiers who died during the reactor crisis, she said quietly. 57. Their families received the notification this morning. Adrian's chest tightened. They died because I didn't finish stabilizing the structure in time, he said. If I'd had 5 more minutes. Do not do that, she interrupted sharply, turning to face him at last. Do not take the responsibility for every death onto yourself. That path consumes people, even queens. The way her voice cracked on the last word made Adrian's throat tighten. I come here every morning, she said, to remember them, to honor them, to ensure that their sacrifice is not buried beneath politics or strategy. She looked at him, really looked, her glowing golden eyes hollowed with the weight of centuries. You said yesterday that I am lonely. Adrian swallowed. Yes, I am. The confession wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic, but it felt like the shifting of a tectonic plate inside her soul. I have been lonely for so long that I forgot what it feels like to be anything else. The Empire demands strength. Perfection, distance. A queen who falters is a queen who dies, and so I learned not to falter. Her jaw trembled ever so slightly. When you chose me, it did something I did not expect. She stepped closer, her robe brushing against the stone. It frightened me. I know, Adrian said softly, but I'm not here to break you. You could, she whispered, not with cruelty, with sincerity. He exhaled because he understood. Sincerity was more dangerous to a fortress than any weapon. Elendra took another step closer. They were only a meter apart now, the morning sun casting soft fire along the edges of her form. I summoned you here, she said, because I need to know who you are before I allow you any further into my life. That's fair. Her head tilted, curiosity mingling with caution. Most humans given a reward by the crown ask for wealth, status, influence. But you asked for something that gives you no advantage, something that complicates your life more than it benefits it. I didn't ask for an advantage, Adrian said. I asked for a connection. Her breath caught again, just as it had the night before. And why me? She whispered. Why a queen who has forgotten how to be anything except a sovereign weapon? Adrian didn't rush his answer. Because you haven't forgotten, he said. If you had, you wouldn't be here reading the names of the dead every morning. You wouldn't have saved me from the reactor chamber yourself. You wouldn't tremble when someone sees you, really sees you. Her eyes widened, shimmering with restrained emotion. And because, he added, stepping even closer, someone needed to choose you, not for your throne, not for your empire. For the woman who stands here now. A long silence. Then, Adrian, she murmured, his name fragile on her lips, I do not know how to accept what you offer. You don't have to know, he said. Just allow it. Elendra looked down at her hands, steady in battle, steady in command, yet trembling now in the presence of one human engineer who simply refused to fear her. I have a council meeting in 2 hours, she said, voice quieter. They will expect answers I do not yet have. Let them wait, Adrian said with a soft smile, her lips parted, surprised. No one tells the council to wait. You're the queen, he said. You can tell anyone to wait. And then something extraordinary happened. Something no courtier, no rival leader, no historian had seen in centuries. Elendra Solaris smiled, a small, hesitant, wondrous smile. You are dangerous, she whispered. So are you, Adrian replied. Another silence bloomed between them, warm, electric, trembling with possibility. Walk with me, Elendra said at last. And just like that, she began guiding him through the memorial garden, not as a queen addressing a subject, but as a woman allowing someone to step into the space she had guarded for lifetimes. Adrian followed, and he knew with a certainty that felt like fate that something irreversible had begun. They walked in silence at first, not the cold, brittle silence of the throne room. This was different, softer, uncertain, like the air between them was learning how to breathe again after centuries of holding still. Elendra moved with the fluid poise of a monarch, but today there was something unguarded in her posture, something almost human, though Adrian suspected she would hate that word applied to her. The stormwind stirred her dark hair as she led him down a pathway framed by crystalline arches. Each step they took caused faint ripples of light to shimmer across the stone, as if the garden itself recognized the presence of its queen. Adrian kept pace beside her, not behind, not beneath, beside her. He caught the way her eyes flicked briefly toward him, quick, assessing, then immediately away again, as if checking whether he understood the gravity of his position or perhaps checking if he would shy away from it. He didn't. Finally she spoke. There are things you do not yet understand about me, she said, about what you've asked for. Then help me understand. She hesitated, a queen pausing not for strategy but for courage. Adrian, the Arthurian throne is not merely a seat of command. It is a living legacy. The crown is woven with ancient bonds, rituals, oaths, histories that shape those who wear it. Her gaze drifted to the crystalline pillars surrounding them. Every decision I make carries the weight of millions. There is no room for weakness. What you call weakness, Adrian said gently, may be the very thing your people need. Her eyes snapped to him, golden and sharp. A queen cannot be vulnerable. You already are, he said simply, just not where anyone can see. She inhaled sharply, the truth like a blade sliding past her defenses. I have no right, she murmured, to let someone into my life when I cannot promise them safety. No one can promise that, Adrian said, not even a queen. Elendra stopped walking. A single breath passed between them. Then she asked the question she had been circling since the moment he chose her. Are you afraid of me? Adrian didn't hesitate. No. She blinked slowly, almost disbelieving. You should be. I know, he said, but I'm not. Elendra's voice lowered to a near whisper. Why? Because fear comes from not understanding something, Adrian said, and I want to understand you. That stopped her completely. The breeze tugged at her hair, the golden light of dawn catching in the strands like threads of fire. Her expression was unreadable, caught halfway between suspicion, longing, and something dangerously close to hope. Understanding me, she said quietly, means seeing the parts of me that have done terrible things. I figured, Adrian replied. Queens don't rule empires by being harmless. Her lips parted slightly, a sharp exhale. Not annoyance, surprise. She was used to flattery or trembling reverence, not pragmatic acceptance. You say these things so easily, she murmured. Maybe that's why you summoned me again, he said. Maybe you're tired of people who only tell you what they think you want to hear. Elendra looked away at that, just for a second, but it was enough. He had struck something deep. They continued walking until they reached the innermost part of the garden, a wide circular platform surrounding a single towering pillar inscribed with names that glowed faintly. This, she said, is where the first queen of Athurian rests, the founder of our dynasty, the one who shaped our laws, our customs, our solitude. Solitude. Yes, Elendra's voice softened. For centuries, the crown has demanded isolation. Too much connection was considered dangerous, a distraction, a vulnerability. And do you believe that? The wind caught her robe, wrapping the dark fabric around her like shadows. Once I did. She touched the pillar gently. But now, she didn't finish. Instead, she looked at him, fully, openly, without the cold armor of royalty. Now I am not sure. Adrian stepped closer, slowly, watching her reaction. She didn't move away. Elendra, he said softly, you don't have to decide everything today. Her hands tightened around the edge of the pillar. That is where you are wrong, she whispered. I do. Before Adrian could respond, a sharp crystalline tone echoed through the garden. Elendra stiffened immediately, posture shifting from uncertain woman back into commanding queen. A high-ranking attendant hurried toward them, bowing deeply. Your Radiance, the council demands urgent audience. The attendant hesitated. It concerns the human. Adrian felt Elendra's energy change beside him, like a blade being drawn. The wind stilled. Demands? Elendra repeated, voice suddenly cold. The council forgets its place. The attendant swallowed. They insist a queen taking a companion, especially a human, has severe political implications. They say the empire must not appear weakened by personal sentiment. Elendra's jaw clenched, so they question my decision. Yes, Your Radiance. A long, dangerous silence. Then, they will receive their audience, she said, but they will not like what I have to say. The attendant bowed and hurried away. Adrian exhaled slowly. That sounds bad. It will be. Elendra turned to him, golden eyes fierce. They will try to convince me that choosing you endangers the empire. And what will you tell them? Elendra stepped closer, close enough that he could feel the faint warmth of her skin through the morning breeze. That I do not make choices out of fear. Her voice lowered, and I will not be intimidated into abandoning one simply because it is difficult. Adrian swallowed. Does that mean? It means, she said quietly, that whatever happens next, I will not face it alone. The words hit him with the weight of a vow, one she wasn't accustomed to giving. Before he could speak, she lifted a hand, hesitated, then let her fingers brush briefly against his chest, just above his heart. Wait for me, she whispered. And with a swirl of indigo robes and command in every, the council chamber of Athurian was not built for comfort. It was built to intimidate. A vast circular hall of mirrored obsidian, lit from below by a soft violet glow that made the air feel electrified. 18 counselors stood on raised platforms around the perimeter, elders, generals, strategists, each wearing ceremonial piercings that marked centuries of service. Their elongated ears glittered with rank and legacy. They fell silent as Elendra entered, not the respectful silence of loyal subjects, a wary silence, a measuring silence. She felt it instantly, the tension coiled like wire, the weight of eyes assessing every movement she made. For 2 centuries, she had faced them with perfect composure. Today, she felt something else beneath their scrutiny, defiance. Your Radiance, Chancellor Valeth began, bowing stiffly. We gather on urgent matter concerning the unprecedented claim made yesterday. Unprecedented, he meant outrageous, dangerous. A mistake. Elendra stepped into the center of the chamber, the light pooling around her like a nebula. Her expression was neutral, but her eyes, those molten golden eyes, burned with warning. "Speak plainly, Chancellor." He swallowed. He had never liked speaking plainly to her. "The human, your radiance, Adrian Voss." He made a request that violates several expectations of succession, alliances, and tradition. "The court is unsettled." "Unsettled," Elendra repeated, her voice calm but icy. "Because he chose me." A ripple of discomfort spread through the counselors. A general stepped forward. "Your radiance, with respect, humans do not understand our customs. His statement should not be considered binding. If you simply disregard." Elendra raised one hand. Silence slammed into the chamber. "When someone stands before a queen and speaks with honesty," she said slowly, "it is not disregarded, it is acknowledged." The general faltered. "Your radiance, such acknowledgement may be perceived as weakness. The Kareth Dominion watches us. Rival houses whisper. If word spreads that a queen can be swayed by." "By what?" Elendra's voice sharpened. "By sincerity. By a man who risked his life to save millions. By someone who dares speak to me as a person rather than a monument." Her words echoed, striking the council with the force of a shockwave. Chancellor Valeth's face tightened. "Your radiance, we do not question the human's bravery. But attachment, should you entertain it, creates vulnerabilities, political ones, military ones." Elendra stepped toward him, and for the first time in years, the Chancellor stepped back. "Let me be clear," she said, her tone lowering into something dangerous. "My choice, whatever it becomes, is not for this council to approve or deny." Another counselor, older than the rest, lifted her chin. "Your radiance, you have not chosen a companion in 200 years. We assumed the throne itself fulfilled you." That for a moment pierced her. A small silence stretched taut. Then Elendra said quietly, "And perhaps that assumption was wrong." Gasps rang around the chamber like cracking glass. The Chancellor's composure slipped. "Your radiance, one human cannot compare to the stability of our lineage." Elendra fixed him with a gaze that could have carved stone. "You speak as though I asked for lineage." The room went still. She let the silence linger, let it seep into their bones. "I asked for nothing," she continued. "Adrian asked for me, and whether I accept that or not is my decision alone." The general tried again, "But the Empire survived because of him," she cut in sharply. "Those names in the garden, without his work they would number in the thousands, tens of thousands. Do not diminish him to justify your discomfort." The counselor's mouth snapped shut. Elendra stepped into the exact center of the glowing circle. Her voice rang with absolute authority. "I will not be ruled by fear. I will not punish honesty. And I will not allow this council to dictate the boundaries of my life." The counselors exchanged uneasy glances. Chancellor Valeth bowed his head, tension stiffening his shoulders. "Then what do you intend, your radiance?" Elendra didn't hesitate. "I intend," she said, "to explore what has been offered and to do so without apology." The chamber erupted in whispers, some furious, some astonished, some fearful. She waited. Let them exhaust their panic. She'd heard it all before, but somewhere deep inside she felt something she hadn't expected, relief. For once in her life, she had spoken not only as a queen, but as herself. When the noise finally dwindled, she delivered the final blow. "This audience is concluded." The sentinels struck their staves to the floor. The counselors bowed, some reluctantly, some stiffly, a few with genuine respect. One by one they filed out, their robes whispering across the obsidian floor. Only when the chamber emptied did Elendra finally exhale. Her legs trembled, her hands trembled, but not from fear, from release. She had stood alone her entire life. Today, for the first time, she stood for something else, for possibility, for connection, for him. Adrian waited in the garden, pacing beside the first queen's pillar, mind racing through every worst-case scenario. Would she be furious, exhausted, distant? Would she return at all? Then he heard footsteps. Elendra emerged from the archway, her expression unreadable, her robes flowing like liquid night. Adrian froze. "Are you okay?" he asked carefully. She approached him slow, deliberate, until the space between them felt charged and breathless. "I faced the council," she said, and I did not let them sway me." His heart thudded. "What does that mean?" Elendra lifted her gaze to his, golden, luminous, steady. "It means I have decided," she said softly. "That fear will no longer rule my choices." Adrian swallowed hard. "Elendra." She stepped closer, close enough that he could feel the warmth of her breath against his throat, close enough that her next words brushed the air between them like a vow. Tonight, she whispered, you will come to my private chambers, and we will speak not as queen and subject, but as two people deciding what comes next. Adrian felt the world tilt, but Elendra wasn't finished. She reached up, night descended over the Arthurian citadel like a living veil, rich with shifting violet and indigo hues. The storm from earlier had quieted, leaving the sky glowing with distant star clusters that reflected off the crystalline walls of the Queen's private wing. Adrian stood before the door he had been told to enter. No guards, no attendants, no ceremonial escort, just him, and a door that led to the most powerful and most vulnerable woman he had ever known. He exhaled once, steadying himself. Then he knocked. The door dissolved open silently. Warm light spilled into the hallway, and there she was. Elendra Solaris did not look like a queen tonight. Her hair flowed freely over her shoulders, unbound and soft. She wore no crown, no armor, only a simple midnight blue robe that fell loosely around her form, catching the lantern light like liquid shadow. Her ears, usually adorned with intricate crystalline piercings, bore only a single silver marking on each side. She looked younger, she looked fragile, she looked real. Adrian, she said quietly, come in. Her voice held none of the authority she commanded before the council. It trembled just slightly, as if this moment, not war, not politics, not leadership, was the thing that scared her most. Adrian stepped inside. The chamber behind her was gentle, intimate, books stacked in uneven towers, a balcony overlooking the garden. Soft cushions arranged near a low table with steaming tea. This was not the Queen's domain, this was Elendra's. She motioned for him to sit by the window where moonlight pooled across the floor like spilled silver. But Adrian waited. Before anything, he said softly, are you sure you want me here? Elendra met his eyes, golden, luminous. No longer cold, only uncertain. Yes, she said, I chose this, whatever it becomes. He didn't realize how tightly he'd been holding his breath until that moment, when his entire chest loosened. She sat first, legs folded elegantly beneath her. Adrian joined her, leaving enough distance to respect her hesitation, but close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her. For a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, Elendra broke the silence. The council will not accept this easily, she said. Some will say you are unworthy, that you are a danger, that I am clouded by sentiment. And are you? She blinked, startled that he dared ask. I don't know, she admitted. I've spent centuries believing that emotion weakens judgment, that attachment breeds instability, yet when you looked at me in the garden, her voice softened. My judgment did not weaken, it clarified. Adrian's heart hammered. How? Because for the first time I wanted something that was not for the empire. Not for the throne, not for duty. I wanted something for myself. Her hand tightened around the fabric of her robe, as though the admission physically hurt. You, she said simply, I wanted you. Adrian's breath caught. Elendra continued, voice barely above a whisper. That terrifies me. He moved closer, not touching her, not yet, just close enough that she could feel the steadiness of his presence. Then we face the fear together, he said. We don't need to define anything tonight. We don't need to decide the future, just be here with each other. Her shoulders eased, tension melting in small, hesitant increments. You speak as though this is simple, she murmured. No, Adrian said, I speak as though it's possible. Elendra looked down at her hands. Slowly, very slowly, she lifted one and extended it toward him. Her fingers hovered, trembling slightly, waiting to see if he would reject the gesture or misinterpret it. Adrian turned his palm upward. Their hands met, not with the force of a vow, not with the weight of a royal decree, but with the fragile sincerity of two people choosing each other in the quiet. Her fingers curled around his. His thumb brushed gently across the back of her hand. Elendra inhaled, sharply, as if the contact overwhelmed her. But she didn't pull away. Instead, she shifted closer until her knee brushed his. Adrian, she whispered, I have forgotten how to let someone close. Then let me remind you slowly. Her eyes fluttered shut. The moonlight painted silver across her cheeks, catching the faintest hint of tears. Not of sorrow, of release. She leaned toward him, hesitant, questioning. Adrian met her halfway. Their foreheads touched first, a soft, grounding point of intimacy. Elendra exhaled shakily, her breath trembling against his skin. Then she whispered, stay. One word, one request she had never made of anyone in centuries. Adrian cupped her cheek lightly, letting her feel his warmth before he even considered a kiss. I'm not going anywhere, he said, her lips parted slightly, expectant, unsure, wanting. He brushed his mouth against hers, a gentle kiss. Barely a breath, soft enough to ask, warm enough to answer. Elendra froze for a heartbeat. Then she melted into him. Her hand rose to his chest, gripping the fabric near his heart as if anchoring herself to the present moment. He deepened the kiss slowly, giving her time to retreat if she needed to. She didn't. When they finally parted, Elendra's eyes were luminous, her voice unsteady. I do not know what happens next. Adrian smiled softly. Neither do I. But we'll choose it together. She leaned into him then, her head resting against his shoulder, her hand still entwined with his. For the first time in centuries, the Eternal Queen was not alone. And for the first time in his life, Adrian felt a belonging so profound it stole his breath. Outside, the storm clouds parted, revealing the twin moons of Valora glowing brightly above the citadel. Inside, a queen and an engineer sat together in quiet closeness, the world beyond their door growing distant.
Si tu laisses pas le droit à l'erreur des gens, c'est bad.
Ça, c'est l'Algérie. Mais c'est pas lui le maillot que moi j'ai. Ah, moi, c'est lui que j'ai.
Je pensais que c'était le Maroc.
Ne redis plus jamais ça. Genre, plus jamais.
Non, mais...
Elle m'a dit c'est le Maroc.
Non, mais no cap, je suis désolée.
C'est pas grave. Tu sais quoi? C'est pas grave, je vais te faire tout un stream où est-ce que je vais t'apprendre l'Algérie. Je vais juste t'apprendre l'Algérie, juste comme ça. Tu vas avoir des cours, puis tu vas apprendre...
Mais moi, je viens pas d'Europe, en vrai.
Quoi?
L'Algérie, c'est rouge.
C'est ça, le drapeau.
Attends,
Normalement, on est vert.
non, mais Maroc, c'est rouge, c'est ça?
Ouais, Maroc,
Ok.
c'est rouge.
Guys, je suis désolée, mais quelle bonne idée! Je m'en vais en Algérie, droit un Skype, tout ça.
Ouais!
Yo, vive l'Algérie! One,
vraiment
two, three.
cute.
Vive l'Algérie! Yo, il y a trop de drip ici, mais on peut pas être là parce que je vais tout... J'ai pas une scène, les gars, pour ça. Guys, n'oubliez pas,
Pardon.
tout le monde est grand ici ou quoi?
T'es la seule qui est toute.
Ouais, par contre,
sans
il y a un
être méchant.
problème!
Mais on t'aime quand même. On t'aime beaucoup même.
Pour ta punition, faut que tu achètes le chandail à l'Algérie. Guys.
Oui, 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 oui. Tu sais quoi?
Ah, ben oui, tu peux me l'acheter!
Hein?
C'est bon, ça, après me l'acheter!
Je comprends pas.
Ben oui, ben tu sais, c'est toi qui es en Algérie, tu veux que j'apprenne et tout, bon, vive l'Algérie, ça va montrer que les Algériennes, ils sont fins, ils sont donnants. Oh oui, c'est bon ça! Putain, bonne idée!
C'est qui la folle qui me suit là? Pourquoi elle me suit? What the fuck?
Mais je vais attendre sur le sofa. Guys, je n'ai même pas d'argent pour une fucking casquette. Vous êtes for real, là, à me demander ça? Je vous ai dit, les gars, il faut attendre un certain nombre de subs pour aller faire le live devant. Parce qu'il faut que je me paye un hôtel si je veux rester
Non, mais tu sais quoi, on va jouer
pour la game. Genre, brother, non.
Il coûte combien à ton avis? Si t'as le juste prix, je te l'achète.
Fille, je veux pas que tu dépenses. Non, pour toi. Dans tous les cas, non.
Ça coûte combien un maillot de foot?
Ça coûte... Ça doit coûter 100 $.
190.
190?
We're
C'est un problème. On fuit.